We've all borne witness to the rise of the gig economy. The very nature of work has changed, and for companies looking to hire, staffing is one of their biggest challenges. So today, we're talking with a company that is looking to disrupt the flexible staffing landscape. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is Chris Brandt here with Sandesh Patel. Welcome to another FUTR podcast. GravyWork is a tech-enabled staffing company looking to rewrite how flexible staffing works with fast pay, convenience, transparency, and training. The GravyWork app makes both working and hiring quick and easy. So let's talk with GravyWork founder Alex Atwood to learn about the future of work. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
I appreciate you being on. I'm excited to talk about this. Work is a very, very popular topic these days. But before we get into all of that, just give me a little bit about, you and GravyWork. You have Santa Staffing too, which is all tied up in this. You're kind of a serial entrepreneur. Give me your quick story.
So I come from a bloodline of staffing entrepreneurs, and I really mean that, a bloodline. Yeah. So my father actually met my mother when he was running Manpower Industrial. Manpower is one of the larger staffing agencies in the world, actually one of the first ones.
Yeah, I've seen them around.
He was a regional director in Toronto, Canada. He hired a temp, my mom, to work in the office. They had an office romance, and then they moved to the States after I was born and decided to start their own staffing company. So I very much was born into the industry. And so in the mid 2000s, well, first I graduated from college, and then wanted to start my career off. And initially, the last thing I wanted to do was to get into staffing because I said, I've had enough of it. And then lo and behold, we were at the end of the 90s, right? And if you remember the end of the 90s, you remember Y2K compliance. You remember that there was a massive demand, specifically in the DC area where I was from, for experienced technologists, developers, engineers, yeah, exactly, C++, all of these different antiquated technologies. So a job offer was given, and I went to go work for a technical recruiting company. And this was around the end of the century, going into the new century. And what happened in 2000 was a little something called the .com bust or the bubble or what? Yeah, I don't know.
I very painfully remember that time.
Yeah. So there I was, in a position where the industry that I was staffing for was not necessarily so ripe anymore during that particular time. So I went back. I wouldn't say I crawled back, but I went to my mother and said, okay, I'm ready to run the family business now. And her staffing company was very traditional. It was in the DC area. So there was a big need for bilingual people who were able to work in the embassies and the World Bank and all these governmental organizations. So I got there pretty quickly and realized that, I was kind of bored. And I said, there has to be something else. There has to be a different industry that has a demand that I could bring into my family's business. So I'm not just doing the same old. And you always want to be, you always want to do something different. Everybody has a need to create something and sort of be cutting edge. So I did an odd thing. At the time, I got a request from an airport hangar, I should say a catering company that was holding an event in an airport hangar. And It was a corporate event. And they needed hundreds of servers, banquet servers, people that wear tuxedos and carry trays and drop food.
And I didn't know actors.
Exactly. Yeah. The full supporting cast there. So I was at a position where I was like, well, this isn't exactly what the company staffs for, but it sounds really interesting. So I took that particular staffing request and then pretty quickly figured out that this is an industry that would absolutely benefit from having a staffing solution. And the industry I'm talking about is the hospitality industry. So the industry was always very cyclical, seasonal. The retention has always been, very, very difficult. It's mainly a stepping stone. So I said, wow, this is a ripe type of environment for a company to come in and provide on-demand staffing. Now, this is in the early 2000s. And so when I founded the company, I decided that I was going to be the most high-tech staffing agency that I could possibly be. And so what that meant, hey, I'm going to be offering online job applications. Ooh, wow. Like you don't have to come in and fill out the paperwork. The majority can be done online. And we gave our customers at the time some limited access to a database so they could see sort of the people that we have in our system and all of that. And that was super cutting edge. So that's where that's where sort of the staffing hospitality side of things came. And I was doing that in my mother's business, right? The family business. And I don't know if you or your listeners have ever been involved in family businesses, but it comes with a unique set of challenges there, right? And so things didn't work out. She decided that the hospitality industry and the service workers that worked there weren't necessarily the best fit for what she was doing, which was more of a sort of a boutique type staffing for, these sort of high-end embassies, people that are bilingual and all that. So I decided I'm going to open my own staffing company and I'm going to have it focus on the hospitality industry. And so I did that. It was 2001, 2002 when I opened the company and realized it was a difficult type of industry to serve. And the main difficulty was that it's shift-based. So that means that you could potentially have somebody work a job as a breakfast cook in the morning, and then in the evening as a banquet server, and the next day as a concierge clerk, and the next. So there was so many different roles that one particular individual could fill that it required a lot of manual work to be able to sort of properly assign people to shifts. And at the time, there was nothing close to a smartphone. There was, I don't know if pagers were still around, but I know we had the flip Nokia phones and you could like barely send a text message. So that was the landscape back then. And so where I'll cut over to Gravy because things changed drastically as I was running my staffing in my hospitality staffing company, in that all of a sudden smartphones became a thing. And people were able to make money from their phone. And so I saw in about 2012, 2013 that my company and the industry that I'm serving is really ripe for disruption. Yeah. And where the disruption comes in is now technology has now enabled through mobile first platforms the ability to pick up shifts, the ability to get paid quickly. I mean, the whole sort of gig economy terminology started to become more prevalent around that time. I personally had been in the gig economy for, at least 10, 12, 13 years prior to that.
Right.
And what I found was lots of the people coming into the service industry, whether they're housekeepers or whether they're people working in restaurants or whatever, it is very much a stepping stone to quite a bit of them. But the people that really earn their living and see it as being something more than just a stepping stone, they're out there as well. And the challenge was to be able to identify the folks that really understand what service is and how to be in service to others and sort of build training around that. So so we sort of put that together with the staffing company and still realize that, technology is definitely changing things in a big way when it comes to employment. I mean, we'll talk about after the pandemic because it's done a massive change then, but even through the 2011 to 2016, 17, 18, it was slowly evolving. People were working more and more and more and earning money from their phones. And it started to take a little bit of market share from my staffing company. So in 2018, we got together with a group of technologists, of architects in terms of software architects, and we built our first version of GravyWork, which is essentially a marketplace of W-2 workers that are able to pick up shifts either on demand as needed or pick up more full-time types of jobs if that's what they're looking for. And what we really realized quickly is that being worker-centric is the most important piece of what we do as a business. And by that I mean really focusing on what the needs of the people that are working on the platform are. Everything from like skills training. So being able to take someone who doesn't necessarily have a particular skill and be able to, give them that skill through formalized in-person training.
So you're primarily in the hospitality space. So is all your training related to the hospitality industry, or are you branching out now? Because it seems like you're in a few more areas these days.
No, but prior to the pandemic, we were specifically focused on hospitality. That's all we did. And our training was in person.
Well, and that was the hospitality industry disappeared for a little while there. So that must have been
Well,
challenging.
yeah, it did, but we didn't disappear. And that's a testament to the collaborative way that we work as a startup. I adhere to leadership without authority. So that enables my team to be able to generate and work together really well and have a good amount of cohesion. And so when our industry went to zero, we quickly got started on, what can we do to support our industry, right?
Right.
And there were two things that we landed on. We could support the workforce that is currently on our platform looking for jobs, and we can support our customers. Now, how can we do that? Well, there was a massive demand for things like disinfection, and what was happening at the time is the disinfection products that were being used were highly toxic. I mean, you could go into an elevator, you'd smell the toxicity. Yeah. So through happenstance, we ended up being a distributor of one of the only non-toxic disinfectants on the marketplace. It was a substance called HOCl. So the training elements that we had to put into place, we simply just repurposed our training to start to teach our folks that were out there working how to properly identify porous surfaces that have microbials, how to run an ATP test, how to properly disinfect. We were one of the only companies in the area that had this thing called the electrostatic sprayer. It was I don't know if you guys had heard about what a rare item that was.
I've used electrostatic spray paint, but
well, this was a really interesting technology that actually attached to surfaces. So if there was any infection on a surface, this particular product would eradicate it in a non-toxic way. And so my salespeople who were originally selling the staffing product, they were actually taking this disinfectant and spraying it into their mouths and being it's totally, and all it was is salt and water. That's an electrolyte. So that's all it is, right? So
still salty water, you got salty water, gotta watch, right? The blood pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the way that Sandy Staff launched. It was really, I don't call it a pivot, I call it an expansion, right? Because our existing team just got busy and we started to execute on that. And so that allowed us to make it through what was a very dark time for the hospitality industry. Yeah. And we made it through with the majority of our team intact. So a lot of the folks that were not with us remained with us because we had this creative element to our company. We were constantly trying to create. It's not like we just took a back seat and said, hey, we're just going to wait. We said, no, we're going to create. We're not going to wait. We're going to create. And that's what we did. And so that really worked out for our team.
One of the things that I constantly hearing, and I was in, Rhode Island, and all the shops were closed, and I'm like, what's going on? It was like a Tuesday or something, we closed down on Tuesday because we just can't find enough workers. We can't. Yeah. I mean, businesses all over, and around my town, restaurants cannot find people to work, and there's just across the hospitality industry. And you look at even I don't know if you're into the airports, but I saw with the whole Southwest thing and all the problems that everybody's having. But I saw a video of a pilot out on the tarmac helping to load luggage the other day. So I mean, it just seems like everything's upended, and what you're doing in terms of flexible work seems to be where people are at right now, right? I mean, can you talk a little bit about how the landscape of work has changed in that regard?
Yeah, well, it's changed. It's changed dramatically, almost month by month since the pandemic. But even prior to the pandemic, we saw the change coming where people are looking to be able to monetize their time when they want to monetize their time. And in our specific industry, there's certain peak, you call them surge rates, where, for example, in the DC area, there's in December, November, there's lots of Christmas events, there's lots of corporate holiday events and things like that. And suddenly, folks' time is suddenly that much more valuable. You need people to come in and serve your guests and all of that. So how do we give them those surge rates? How do we appropriately monetize them was one piece that we were looking at, right? And that's what they're doing. I mean, these days, a lot of our workforce if they have a hankering to make some money at, 11 p.m. at night, well, they'll just log onto their Uber, they'll go out there, and they may not work the next day at the barista shift or whatever it is, right? Because they just have more access, right? So that's the reality. And so what we've done is we're just operating in the existing reality. We're saying that, look, you have, possibly a job, as a service worker at a particular restaurant or something like that. And you're already picking up shifts and taking on other gig type of assignments while you're doing that. So this is an opportunity for you to not only be able to continue doing that, but now that service job that you kind of call your regular, your full-time job can now also have that element of flexibility to it. It can also be a type of role where you have ultimate control over not just your schedule, but over how much you make. And the traditional job of a service worker is they're hired, they're given a rate, whatever that rate is.
Yep.
They're going to either be working for tips or they're going to have to work over a period of time and hopefully get a raise, right?
Right.
That is no longer relevant in the service industry. At this point, trying to hire people and put that through that cycle with all of the opportunities that are out there is gonna blow up in your face. And I've been doing, obviously I've been doing research around the gig economy in general. But if you look at the turnover in the service industry, some of our clients have almost like 900% turnover. I mean, it's unbelievable how turnover looks. I mean, people will start one day and then just not come back because they didn't like whatever, right? So that then means that you have a hospitality companies that have a real need for staff, as you were pointing out. And so because we are worker-centric, because we do focus on the reality of the situation, which is people are now working multiple jobs or multiple gigs, why not allow that to happen and facilitate and enable that to happen in a more efficient way for them?
One of the things that Uber and Lyft and all those sort of brought to the whole thing is that, like you talk about the concept of surge pricing. You're bringing surge pricing to the staffing industry, which is kind of interesting because then that starts to create a kind of marketplace as to
Correct.
Is Uber going to pay me more or is GravyWork going to pay me more, right?
That's it. And that's the reality of it. And what we're doing actually in 2023, which is super exciting, is we're partnering with a PEO, which is a professional employment organization, to be able to gigify their existing ecosystem. So what a PEO will do, for example, is they'll employ, multiple across multiple hospitality businesses, all of their employees. So they will be the employer of record. And what they are seeing now is that their model of just sort of the FTE employee leasing is no longer relevant either, because a lot of their employees are quitting and they're having to go through this process over and over again. Right. So what we've decided is, why not make even an internal company's employment, what's the word I'm looking for here? They're sort of shift scheduling. Like, why not make it gigified? Why not allow somebody who, for example, is working in a Burger King across town also have opportunity to work at a Starbucks, right? As long as the ownership is the same, why not do that? And why not even open it up beyond that, right? So we've seen right now, for example, Target itself has taken on has gigified their internal scheduling to where people can pick up shifts quickly over a phone at different locations, whenever they want. And they haven't implemented the surge pricing yet, but we're on sort of the cutting edge of that, right? So we're not limited to, a one ecosystem. We're limited to multiple types of types of clients in this industry, and we're finding just such an enthusiasm about how things are changing, because there's really a difficulty there in finding people that will stick with your company. And another thing that's really interesting here is that our clients have found that because of the size of turnover, they have a lot of employees that have worked for them for a period of time and have just kind of disappeared. This now allows them to go back to those employees to say, hey, we can bring you back into our system in this sort of, work when you want model, right? And, if you want to come back, if you left for school, you used to work at the country club and now you're at school, well, guess what? You can easily jump in and pick up however many shifts you want. You don't have to call the manager and ask them, hey, is there anything open? You don't have to try and, wiggle your way. No, it's there.
Well, the other thing I think that's interesting about what you're doing is, you mentioned that they're all W-2 employees, right? So, I think with the gig work, one of the things that they struggle with are any kind of consistency of benefits or consistency of administration of their, HR and things like that. I mean, they're kind of just an individual out in the wild, but with bringing them in as a W-2 employee, that gives, I would imagine, a little bit more stability for a lot of people too, right? And potentially more benefits.
Yeah. Well, the thing about it is, so the temp staffing industry has always been a W-2 based industry. I mean,
gig economy has not, though.
No, but effectively the staffing industry has always been the gig economy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just under a different name. So it's not as if we're reinventing the wheel or doing anything like that. Me being a staffing industry guy, it's always been a W-2 situation, and it's always been a gig situation, specifically in my field. So this doesn't deviate too much. What it does, though, it does open up, looking at how we can serve what our mission is, which is, again, being worker-centric, right? So you have more ability to be able to train, you have the ability to ensure, you have the ability to really take care of folks when they're W-2. So it just makes more sense for our business model.
So you're doing the upskilling too. You're spending the time to train these folks. You want to retain these folks, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. And we don't have the problem with retaining them as much because there's just such a wide variety, right? So as long as they feel as though that they're being treated fairly, and that there's lots of opportunity for them on our platform, and that we're consistently listening and making it more useful and better for them, I think what we're finding is that we're having people stick with us, and even if they leave, if they go back to their country, or if they go find a job, they're always welcome to come back. There's no rigidity around that.
Sundesh's family, Sandesh, I'll let you chime in here a little bit because his family's in the hospitality business, and I know that's. Can you speak to that side of the equation, Sandesh?
Oh my God, yeah! I've been everything that we've been talking about here is kind of hitting home. So my family was in the hospitality business. I don't know if you know, but Patels really like their motels and hotels. So my parents jumped into that boat with my brothers. I was not part of it, but. The biggest challenge that my brother had in operating his hospital,
his hospital,
that was his
hotel.
Sorry, his hospital.
Unless your brother got a degree I didn't know about.
Yeah, so I've been very much interested in what you're talking about here. My family got in the hospitality business and the hotel motel business, just like every other Patel out there. And so they were in it for about 20 some years, and my brother ran the hotels. But what was interesting is he couldn't find staff, and it got to the point where he's like, I'm done. I want to get out. And this was like a big decision for him, right? I mean, this is his baby for like 20 some years, for him, and he's still young enough. He still, can work and everything else. But he said it was just so hard to find good people and then get them to stay, and not even just stay, to show up. There's, like so many of the staff, it's like just doesn't show up one day. So I don't know if you have any, I don't know if you even focus on hotels.
Actually, hotels are really, for a good period of time, our bread and butter. But specifically the hotels that have the food and beverage element there. So there's the full service hotels where you have the banquets and you have the events. Then you have just the limited service hotels, which is mainly rooms. So our focus has been initially on the staffing end of things in the full service hotel area. And I mean, if you think about it, these folks make a good amount of their profits through the events, the weddings, the ceremonies, and all of that, and they just cannot keep staff, year round for, a handful or a few dozen events that they might have during a season. So that's always been sort of the first place that we've gone, and because of just sort of the transient nature of hospitality in general, you said it was your father?
Brother.
Yeah.
So what your father dealt with is absolutely the way that it is. And what I found is, especially when immigrants come in and they get into the hotel business, a lot of times they bring family in because they can, trust them to work in the hotels. But for us, look, if you were to separate a hotel into departments, right? If you were looking at the kitchen where they make the food or the housekeeping department, those are two particular departments that do require consistency. In other words, it's difficult for you to bring somebody in and teach them how to make your room the way of the standard of XYZ hotel without having some preliminary training and all of that. So there are some roles which are more challenging in terms of an on-demand sort of environment. But we're learning that as well. Like, we're learning how do we plug someone into a hotel who hasn't necessarily worked there? How do we quickly get them trained? If they have a baseline understanding, right, of how to turn a room, then how do we just give them that little 20% knowledge transfer for them to be able to do that at, whatever that particular hotel is. So that's what it looks like. And so to answer your question, hotels have always been a major part of our business because of the seasonality of the events and the food and beverage. But now, as we're sort of moving into what is a more interesting, challenging labor market, we're finding that some hotels are even willing to create their housekeeping departments as almost sort of an on-demand type of environment, where they were never willing to do that before. And so when you see, hey, there's a massive need here, then the obvious question is, well, how do we teach folks that are coming here how to turn our rooms? So working in conjunction with our clients, we get to develop that, right? We get to do that. And that's always what challenges bring to the table, is opportunity to create and problem solve, right? So I think there's a lot of that happening right now, not just in our business, but in anyone who's employing people. It's like, how do we think outside of the way we used to do it so that we can get our customers serviced? And so that's where they start to see companies like GravyWork, they start to see other options out there, and they start to say, hey, maybe there's another way to do it aside from just posting ads and dealing with, a revolving door. You know what I mean?
Do you have any metrics around like how many people have been staffed through your app, or how many users that you have, or anything like that? Just to give me an idea of the scale.
Wow. Well, that number goes up every day. But so, we have
moving target.
It's a moving target. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of shifts that we fill every week. It could be anywhere from 900 shifts in a particular market in a week to 5,000 shifts. It all depends upon the seasonality of it, and it depends upon the market. So if you have a much smaller market that just doesn't have as much volume, then you're just not going to see that much. But that's essentially what it is. I mean, what our goal is to provide a seamless onboarding and a seamless way for our workers to be able to pick up shifts and get money and take care of themselves and sustain themselves. So that's what we're constantly kind of trying to push towards, right? And we want to make sure that we're competitive in an environment that has a lot of 1099 workers in it, right? So we're also kind of thinking through that, like, okay, I personally, the minute I know it all is the minute I'm not able to learn anything. So I'm not coming into this industry with some very rigid staffing industry set of ideals or sort of dogma, right? I'm kind of letting things sort of happen and understanding how the nature of work is just changing. The mentality is just changing. And so how do we kind of make sure that we're still there and that we're on that leading edge of that, right?
I know one of the big things that you're working on too is developing community among the people that you're working with. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's it. That's huge. When you talk about Sandesh, when you talk about like the need to be able to have people, well, guess what? It's an age-old truth that referrals are always the best way to either get business or because you have people, you have somebody actually not seeing an ad, but you have somebody giving them their personal experience, and so that carries a lot of weight. So what we've done is, and this was prior to the pandemic, and we're starting to get it back going again, but having community events that we sponsor. So we will find a local restaurant. We'll invite everyone over, free food, free drinks. You guys can kind of talk, how do you guys feel about what we do? What's going on with you? We celebrate people's birthdays, their anniversaries, all that stuff, right? So, and what we want to do next year, and again, we didn't have the opportunity to do this during the pandemic, but have soccer tournaments, have fun events that we're constantly doing. And the important thing is that you keep a cadence to it. So every month, there's going to be something going on. People can show up there. If they have questions, they can get those answered. They can meet each other, and everyone loves a free party, especially when it's your employer, and especially when we have giveaways, and sometimes we give away cash and all that. So anyway, that's a big part of what we do. And we also have open office hours that people can stop by if they need to. And I think that's another big piece of it, because a lot of what happens is the gig economy apps don't necessarily give access to human beings outside of the work that they're doing on the apps. And frankly, a lot of people don't necessarily need that, but there are a good element, specifically in our world, where they want to feel like there's part of a community. They want to feel like they're supported by a real company that's local, as opposed to a technology solution on their phone, right? So we're able to do that. And one other point underneath that is, when you're placing someone in a role, let's call it a wedding, and this person is going to be serving tables at your wedding or tending bar, it's a much different experience than if you have somebody driving you from point A to point B, or you have somebody going to a grocery store and picking up a carton of milk and leaving it on your doorstep.
Right.
You have to actually interact with people. You're representing not just the GravyWork element, but you're also representing the hotel or restaurant. So there's a lot of different stakeholders in that service execution.
Right.
And so that's where it becomes even more important to build community, because people are going to feel more, related to the human beings in the company as well. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is that they step up a little bit more when they feel as though they're part of something, as opposed to, hey, I'm just going to cancel a job because whatever, that's a faceless robot somewhere in Silicon Valley. I don't know, whatever. That's sort of what we see as our secret sauce, because, coming from the staffing industry, I've always gotten really excited about matching people. I mean, that's
You're
whatever reason, I'm a matchmaker. And even when I was doing it, not in hospitality, I loved it. I loved, you're COBOL, you retired 20 years ago. Oh, I have this great opportunity for you. Look, you can make this much money and be relevant again. And, being able to make those connections has always been something that's really kind of got me going.
Yeah.
And so now doing it at scale, I still get that little, that little endorphin hit every time someone gets a job and then they review, oh, I love working there. I want to work there again. I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I had something to do with that. So
that's awesome. I mean, we need more people happy about their work in this world.
That's for sure.
The interesting thing that you've done is you've kind of built a platform, right? And that platform can be used in many different industry verticals, right? You're currently, largely in the hospitality, but there's no reason why you couldn't branch off into other things, I would imagine, too. But I mean, where do you see the future of GravyWorks going?
Yeah, so I see the future of GravyWorks going in the same direction that work is going in general, right? Which is being much more accommodating to the people that are doing the work, giving more opportunity to make more money when the opportunity arises. I see the system, the old method of sort of hiring FTEs to take on every job in a hospitality company isn't really working anymore. Yeah. I don't think it hasn't worked for a long time, but now it's painfully obvious that it's not working anymore. So I see GravyWork really not just servicing as a tech-enabled temp service, but more taking our technology and applying it to different use cases. So like I gave you an example earlier about Target taking all of their employees and gigifying them, thus allowing them to be able to monetize time and pick up shifts when they want, and possibly outside their location and all of that, right? So I see our technology being applied there, right? So are there other companies? Of course there are, that are dealing with this. Small, mid-size, even large companies that want to be able to fill their open shifts with people that understand what exactly is the service or the product that they're providing. Right. And they want to be able to have some sort of connectedness with not just the people that are working, today, but maybe some old employees that you'd like to bring back. So this kind of gives I see Gravy as being sort of a connection marketplace, right? For not just people who are in the open market looking to pick up shifts, but to people within their own organization, right? Connecting with each other. So if I'm working in a location somewhere in, I don't know, Brooklyn, and I happen to find another Starbucks that's part of the GravyWork family of businesses, hey, I can go pick up a shift at that Starbucks because they're signed up with GravyWork too. Or, so it really gives a ton of opportunity for the folks that aren't necessarily your traditional freelancer or gig economy, person. And another big part of this is the majority of the gig economy jobs, they require you to have transportation. They just do. You have to go, you have to be somewhere quickly, or you have to drive somewhere. So in our world, you don't necessarily need that. Right? You can get on the metro and go pick up a shift at a hotel, or you can go pick up a barista shift at a coffee shop or something like that without necessarily needing a car. And a lot of the folks that do this work, specifically in the urban areas, don't necessarily need a car. Right. They have access to public transpo. So we're also giving gig opportunities to these folks. And we've had some interesting conversations. We had a company come down and offer to give all of our folks scooters, the Lime scooters, to get to work. So there's just different. It's interesting how things are changing.
One of the things we were talking to another person on the last podcast, Vanessa Gabriel, who's actually doing a cannabis drop delivery. This is the company. They're doing delivery service for the cannabis industry, but she said, in New York, you have to figure out like how to do that delivery on scooters because you can't drive around New York, right? So that's a really interesting approach to it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I had a company out in Denver actually ask if we had trimmers available, like if we could, people to trim the weed plants and people to cultivate and all that. I said, no, I wish. Maybe if we come down to Denver, we will. But
I could put you in touch with Vanessa. Maybe she could use you.
There's always possibilities. Yeah. But my point is that, yes, I mean, you're right. This particular form of employing people really could be applied anywhere. It could be in the cannabis industry. Like I said, we got a call looking for that. And there are companies, temp staffing agencies, not necessarily gig-based ones that I know of that are, servicing almost every industry.
What you're doing is super cool. I like the fact that you're applying, modern technology to the age-old problem of staffing, and I'm excited to see where you go with it. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about your company with us.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks, Sandesh. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And if you could, please, I'm begging here to click on that subscribe link because that helps the channel a ton. And I will see you in the next one.